Hey there, I'm Taz Singh, and I've been working with communities for as long as I can remember. Fundamentally, communities are made up of people, so this is my journey going to those communities and talking to those people. Come along with me. I'm back, and I have Nader Dabit here. So he's one of the guys that I kind of look up to. He's always traveling, and so it's kind of a pleasure to finally get him in one place for once. I think you just been to Nigeria? You've been to Dubai. Now you're in Amsterdam. Like how's all that going?
Yeah, this has been a particularly wild month for me, I would say, and I was thinking about it, and I realized I was going to be in 5 continents in a 30-day period, because before I went to Nigeria, I was actually in Brazil for a family vacation. I'd never been there before. It was really fun, but it was just so happened that I was doing all this, and all these dates just happened to line up. And it's been a lot of travel, so I'm looking forward to being back in my home and being able to relax.
Wait, five continents? So wait,
yeah,
so
South America.
South America?
Well, in the United States, so like when I was thinking about this, I tweeted it out, and then in the United States, we were taught like the North America and South America are 2 separate continents, but I think in other parts of the world, they might be teach that America in general is just a single continent. Yeah, I was in North America, South America, Africa, Europe, and also, so what was it? North America, South America,
Asia,
Africa, Asia, yeah,
and now Europe.
Because of Dubai, yeah. So
you can tell he's been living in every single time zone.
Yeah, jet lag.
Yeah. But so today I think you spoke about Web3, about building apps on Web3?
Yes, that's right. The talk was hopefully kind of going into and describing to people that may have not been familiar with it what the Web3 tech stack looks like. So a lot of times people talk about Web3 and it's really these weird generalizations around it's going to save the world or it's going to end the world, depending on who you talk to. But I think from a developer's perspective, we just want to know how to build stuff. So I was hoping to break that down.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much building happening in Web3 right now, and I think the thing that I really like about Web3 is basically it's all based around communities. Web3 is so community centric, and everyone's kind of doing things in so many different communities. But like the nice thing I like about it is it's very community centric. I mean, so much about Web3 is community centric, and I think the one thing that I know about Nader is that we were formative essentially within DevDAO, and DevDAO is now. I mean, you can obviously explain it much better than I can, but I'm going to take a stab at it. DevDAO is, my understanding, a community of like-minded people that want to help educate others, essentially within Web3. Want to kind of help, with knowledge transfer, with support, with kind of helping people build new things. And is that kind of a very high-level rundown, or?
Yeah, that's a good rundown. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening in there, and it's kind of grown organically to be a bunch of different things that people that are within the community can kind of spearhead their own things. So there's things that are happening that were never really intended to happen in good ways. But the original intentions were to kind of onboard a lot of developers into the space and get them jobs and get them educated and give them opportunities. And we've seen so many people now have landed jobs, they've gotten gigs, they've been educated, they're now out there often creating their own teams. They've been hired, and now they're hiring people themselves. And we put on a free event, Web3Con, that was a free conference. We've created open source, been downloaded, hundreds of thousands of times already. Some of our open source has been used, by a lot of apps. So, yeah, but most importantly, I think it's just a community where people can get together and hang out and talk and make friendships and build relationships, and that's kind of it, yeah.
Yeah, I saw as well that you had like a few DevDAO like events even. So I guess a bunch of people are flying into like the same place, and so kind of as you're saying, like, hey, let's just meet up, let's learn from each other, let's kind of appreciate essentially each other. Is that really what a DevDAO event is like? Would you say?
We've had virtual events like the Web3Con, but the ones that you're talking about, the IRL events or the in real life events, are really fun, and we often put them on, and people already live in those cities. So we did a London one. We've done a couple of London ones where everyone that lives in London just gets together and eats dinner together and just hangs out. But we've also have the ones that are kind of tied to an event. So we had one in Miami during a Miami event not too long ago. We did the one in Dubai. We had 2 in Dubai. We did one in Denver, ETH Denver. We have ones planned for Amsterdam, for ETH Amsterdam. And we actually have a really big one coming up in Miami in April for React Miami, which is also run by the same organizers as this conference, actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So these events that we put on are like side events, or in real life events. But again, everything that we do is public. So anyone can come to these events. They don't have to be part of the DAO. And you can come there and you can network, you can meet people, you can just have drinks and have food and have a good time. But it's a really great combination of like virtual metaverse stuff, in real life stuff, people getting jobs. It's turned into a lot of cool stuff that have evolved, and we don't really know where it's going, but we like what's happened so far, so we're happy.
Yeah. And I think like the few things that you mentioned there, just to kind of say it back, it's that connecting with everyone. You know what I mean? It's connecting and learning from everyone, and I think essentially for the advancement of everyone together. And it's that kind of community that like I really appreciate, and really resonates with me, is that kind of community vibe and that community effort. Like I didn't even know this event was affiliated with React Miami. So that again shows you kind of like those global communities forming, and those global communities kind of happening to really just elevate all of us together. And like really, DevDAO speaks volumes to me in that category, and that's where I really like it. That's where I really see a lot of value in it myself. And I think, like, based on my own observation, I think it's the first time something like that has been done to that type of execution and scale. I haven't seen kind of communities grow so organically in a global manner in the same way ever before, and I think that's what's remarkable and astounding to me.
Yeah, it's cool because it's a DAO, and if you're not familiar with the DAO, it's short for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, but the gist of it is that people that are part of the community are giving ownership, actual, real, liquid ownership of the community, and therefore there's a different type of incentive mechanism that's kind of built in that's just wasn't there before, and while you don't have to provide people monetary value or gain to kind of ask them to be part of any community. When you do provide that, it does make things a little different because we all are kind of in it together. We're all trying to make everything successful together. Everyone benefits from it. You feel more like, almost like you might, if you're working with someone at a company, like you want each other to succeed. You feel that way about everyone in the community, a little more maybe. And it's just a cool way to kind of like give people some type of ownership. And we offer free memberships. So like if you if you were not there to mint the token for free when it came out, we have a bunch of those set aside to kind of bring people in for free. People often will gift their membership to someone else if they have acquired more than one. And it's just a different incentive mechanism that maybe wasn't there with traditional communities. And I think that's why it's become so successful so quickly, is that DAOs in general are kind of like a new mechanism for coordination that we're starting to see take shape. And we're all still trying to figure it out, but they do provide a quite different mechanism for getting people together to do stuff,
Yeah. I'm still waiting on one of those memberships, by the way. So if you happen to know anyone that can get me one of those,
I can check around.
Like they're so cool. Like they're basically NFTs, and they have a bunch of properties on them, and like you can get like artwork generated for all those properties as well. And like I'm just like, but like I think that's another great example. I think if I'm not mistaken, you created the initial NFT because you're kind of exploring the space. You kind of want to see how to make them.
Yeah, that was the first
more.
time I deployed a smart contract to Ethereum mainnet was for a developer DAO in my life.
Yeah. I remember following the journey on Twitter, and I remember seeing like all those different steps that Nader took doing that. But I think like the remarkable thing, which kind of goes back to the power of community, is that someone else entirely kind of made the artwork for it, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. So the smart contract was forked from another smart contract that was deployed to Ethereum, and I think that's another cool part about Web3 stuff, is that it's all completely open source. Every application is deployed publicly to a network, so for the most part, you can just go there and copy and paste the code. So someone deployed this smart contract for a different project about a week earlier, maybe a couple weeks earlier, and I looked at the contract and I was like, oh, this is really easy to understand code, so let me try to fork this and build something a little different. So I just kind of was able to fork this contract, and within about 30 minutes had something put together that became developer DAO. So it wasn't a lot of work to put the contract together because of this idea of composability, and it's kind of like the ethos of Web3 is that everything is public and publicly accessible, and we can all kind of work together and build off of each other.
Which is like this is what excites me, like exactly what he just said is what excites me so much. It's and as I said before, it's kind of intertwined with community in a way. Like everything Nader just said, it's kind of that community that's kind of lifting everyone up together and kind of building something that like is better for everyone at the end of the day. And so like that I don't know about you, but
Yeah, I mean, that's exciting for me. I mean, I've been in the software development space for like 10 years. I've been quote unquote community building or attempting to almost my whole career, going back to Mississippi when I was putting together meetups and coding schools and stuff. And, you know, we're always looking for ways to get people excited and inspired and incentivized to do stuff. So any time that you have a breakthrough and innovation in that space, it excites me for sure. And I think that this, you know, some of the things that are enabled by these Web3 primitives around providing ownership and the ability to kind of improve the value of a network based on the network effects is pretty cool, and we're still figuring it out. But I mean, so far it's been a fun experiment, and a lot of benefit has come to a lot of people because of it. So even if we shut it all down tomorrow, I think it's been worth it, you know?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I could not agree more. I think it's like, it's pushing those boundaries and exploring new ways to elevate people that just, like, I can't even begin to describe how much that excites me. But we talked a lot about developer DAO. I'm curious about other things that excite you in this space. Like, it could be obviously developer DAO or anything in general, really. But like what's exciting for you? What's the next wave of things that excite you?
So one of the things that I'm really excited about is kind of the entire tech stack of Web3 and how and I talked about this a lot in my talk, but some of the characteristics that are enabled by, you know, this idea of a fully decentralized application, mainly, again, focused around composability and interoperability and open source, and having this idea of public data that anyone can build applications on top of, and that we know that it's going to be there and it's going to be consistent. A good example of like how this might have looked like in the traditional tech space was something like the Twitter API. That was one of the first APIs that was publicly accessible and available for people to build real companies and million-dollar companies on top of. And people did that, but Twitter recognized that people were potentially going to create more value than they were. So what do? They closed their API and they changed everything, and a lot of businesses got shut down. So what if we could have these types of backends that were unable to be shut down, and that data we knew was going to be there, and we knew that 10 years from now, if we build an app, it's going to be still available. I think that those types of ideas and those types of things already happening are what really excite me. So you already see that happening in the NFT and the DeFi space. I think what we need now is to build the types of infrastructure that will allow us to build more sophisticated applications like social media and things like that, that will then enable kind of like the next wave of adoption. So I guess just the idea of like more advanced and better Web3 infrastructure that's being worked on today that isn't quite there yet, that it really excites me. And that's what we're doing at The Graph. We're one of those different protocols that is building that. So yeah, I mean, every day you see new improvements happening, but I think the Web3 space is still nascent. People understand that. We still have a long way to go. And it's really fun just being part of one of the many people that's out there trying to build that.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I guess if you can dumb it down for me, because there's a lot going on in that space, and so if you can really dumb it down for me, because like I'm still exploring, I'm still learning, essentially. You're able to take like data and put it to a publicly available, completely distributed, decentralized network of kind of acts as a database in a way, and kind of the way that the data is stored on there, and kind of the way that you can interact with that data. It's managed in such a way that you can't kind of like overwrite someone else. You can't kind of like mess up what someone else is doing. It's all immutable. It's all incremental. It all kind of builds on top of itself, and because the way that the network is structured, there's kind of consensus algorithms where basically each node can kind of validate and say, actually, yes, this piece of data in our network, actually it's good data. Everyone else also says it's good data, therefore store it. And you can kind of keep kind of incrementing data upon data upon data on a chain, on sort of linked list. And that's kind of what like the basic bottom primitive of kind of the blockchain space is, based on my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a very good, like, just general overview of kind of like the blockchain networks themselves. But like, as far as the Web3 stack is conceptually from a developer's perspective, I think there's like 4 main components maybe. You have the blockchain, which provides that, immutable distributed ledger technology that we've seen talked about with Ethereum and other smart contract platforms that have come since then. You also have the distributed file storage systems, like we're used to working with S3, but we now have in the Web3 space IPFS and Arweave. So this allows you to store videos and images and things like that. So those are two separate areas that you would store different types of data. You have peer-to-peer databases that I would also categorize as the part of the Web3 stack, even though that ecosystem and that community traditionally has created this idea of the D-Web, the decentralized web, which is awesome as well. And a lot of the people that are like in this space overlap between that D-Web space. And then finally, you have this idea of self-sovereign identity. So the idea is that instead of handing over your email address and your phone number to identify yourself, you have the option of using something that is less personal and therefore leaves you less susceptible to data breaches and also targeted advertising and stuff like that. And you have protocols that are building systems that allow you to also have more control over that identity. So you can not only use something like a wallet or a Web3, I would say call it a Web3 wallet to authenticate, but you can also choose to use a protocol like self.id by Ceramic to tie personal information to that if you do want to, but you control that. So you have the single place that you would say, okay, my Twitter handle is associated with this address, and then other applications would just basically point to that to kind of read that information as opposed to storing it on their own servers. So you have identity, file storage, you have the blockchain, and then you have peer-to-peer databases. And I think those four things put together just enable you to build different types of applications than we could in the past.
This is why I love talking to Nader, because I mean, I understand like this much of it, and the way that he's able to explain it just excites me and inspires me to like levels that I you know what I mean? I just love talking to this guy because I mean the community, the technology, it's just all there. But. And so like again for like especially for my dumb brain I described some sort of immutable ledger earlier, and so the graph it basically indexes things like that. It does index the other parts of the stack that you mentioned, and then my understanding is that like traversing over some sort of linked list. I mean, if you've done any sort of computer science before, it's a pain to traverse a linked list. But if you have an index on that, actually accessing that data and kind of being aware of that data becomes dramatically easier. Is that kind of the graph in a nutshell?
That was probably one of the most concise, good explanations I've heard. I'm going to start using that. When you think of a traditional database, it's optimized for read and write operations. Blockchains are often only optimized for write operations because of the nature of a linked list. Like you said, you're writing data over time. So imagine a blockchain where information has been written for 5 years, like Ethereum. Let's say you wanted to read a history or get a relational query out of that, or do some filtering or sorting on a data from a certain smart contract deployed early on. Imagine hitting the network and trying to get that. It would be impossible, really. So like you mentioned, a lot of times people would, instead of trying to do that on demand, they just go ahead and traverse all of the data. They store it and index it within their own database. They build their own API on top of it. And then any new data that gets added to the network, they just also listen for that and they keep up with it. So then you have an up-to-date database. So the graph offers a protocol that allows developers to kind of describe that a data model in a concise manner and deploy it to a network. The network is then given the work of indexing that and providing a GraphQL endpoint. And then from the front end perspective or from the application layer perspective, all you need is that endpoint to query data, and then you have a very, very optimized querying layer on top of that data. So you can do filtering, sorting, full text search, relationships, stuff like that.
Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but like it sounds like that's a pretty critical link in building. Building front-end applications.
That's why I'm so excited about working for this team. I mean, there's a lot of really great teams out there, but coming from AWS and realizing the importance of the infrastructure that we had built there and the services that we provided there, I just felt in the Web3 blockchain space, I would love to work for a similar company. Yeah. So there's a lot of really great ones out there that are providing Web3 infrastructure. I mentioned Arweave, I mentioned Ceramic, all the layer 1, layer 2 blockchains provide that, and then the graph also provides that in its own way.
Yeah, I mean like to me that just sounds like it's a critical link, because you can have data stored in whatever way you want to store it, but at the end of the day, if it's not easily accessed by a front end for a user experience, it's basically useless, isn't it? By definition, it's kind of useless. And so it sounds like the graph is taking all this data that kind of just exists within this community space, within this worldwide distributed, like essentially decentralized network of nodes, really, indexing that, making accessible to a front end via a GraphQL API even. I feel like that's just showing off at that point, you know? It's just kind of showing off at that point, making accessible via GraphQL.
I'm a big fan of GraphQL. I've been writing GraphQL for like 4 years. We focus on it at AWS, so that was another reason I like the graph, yeah.
Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, like I'm also, of course, a big believer in GraphQL. I love GraphQL. Everything I do is GraphQL, and so, you know, I can only appreciate it even more because it is GraphQL, because it makes it even that much more accessible to access the back end. So, I guess the question I have, like the curiosity that I have, is I know that obviously so much within the kind of blockchain space. I'm hesitant to say Web3 because I don't understand it enough to say that, but I'm going to say blockchain space is based on immutability. And so, like how does the graph index in an immutable manner, or does that even make sense? Or
yeah, the way that I look at it is like the contract is immutable. So the application that you deploy to a network like Ethereum or any smart contract network is immutable. So you can't then go and change the code, but you can deploy a new version of that. A lot of times people do this proxy pattern where they deploy a smart contract that points to another contract, but the data within the contract is actually mutable in the sense of you can actually change state within a contract. I think that's a slight misconception that you often hear, that when people think this data is immutable, yes, like every single transaction that you write will be stored on the network, and that's not going away. But let's say you have state within a contract. Let's say you have an array of people and you want to update that array. You can actually do that, but that data will still forever be there. The previous state, the new state, all of that's going to always be there. But to say that it's immutable isn't, like, I would say, the right way to describe it, like I think for the most part, because yes, the contract's immutable, yes, the data will always be there, but you can have state within the contract that is considered mutable.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And this was something that I discovered recently as well. I was telling Nader that I had the pleasure of working with a lovely guy called Marcel Cutts, and together, Marcel's amazing. I love Marcel. So we together we built an NFT smart contract just to kind of learn and explore and kind of discover kind of how all these things work. And basically, as Nader is saying, it was a piece of like learning for me to kind of understand that actually like where like the NFTs themselves, they never actually leave the contract. They're just kind of assigned a different owner within the contract, and like the address themselves and that whole ledger is actually stored within the contract's piece of data on Ethereum. On Solana, it's a bit different. On Solana, they separate compute and state a bit more, where apparently on Solana, the state of that is stored on each individual's wallet and is kind of managed by protocol and contract. But on Ethereum, it's all stored within that same Ethereum smart contract. And I was like, wait, you mean when you send me an NFT, it doesn't actually go anywhere. It's just updating the internal contract data. And I was like, well, you know, it's kind of interesting to me. But there's a lot of advantages to doing that, right? In like the actual contract controls this data, and as Nader is saying, you can release a new version of the contract and kind of like essentially try to manipulate the data. Awesome. Well, I guess the other thing that I'm kind of curious about, Nader, is for me, I was just traveling recently. I was just in New York in September, and I happened to be in a hotel, and I happened to be sharing that hotel with some lovely Argentinians. And so I was in Argentina, like, I don't know, a couple of years ago now, whatever. And I remember a lot of people complaining about kind of the state of the currency, the state of the economy, how everything's just inflating, and like it's a very challenging economic environment there. Like I'm always curious about how things like crypto, how things like that whole space can help with like folks in Argentina, because like for example, like they were telling me that it's actually illegal. Like crypto's illegal in Argentina. To like they need to put their money into US dollars to try to keep it like kind of stable. Otherwise, it's going to just like hyperinflate if they keep it in Argentinian. I think it's pesos. I forget what the Argentinian currency is. Apologies, everyone in Argentina. But if they keep it in Argentinian currency, it just hyperinflates and just loses value basically. But to put it into US dollars, there's a massive tax on it. or they can't circumvent, or they can buy it in the black market, or they can try to use crypto, but crypto is illegal there, and so it's just such a difficult space
We have
right
people
now.
that work with the protocol, and I didn't realize it was actually illegal in Argentina, but I know of a lot of people in Web3 that live in Argentina and they just get paid in crypto, so it makes it, obviously that would be the ideal scenario if you're looking to kind of get into stable currency there. You would just get paid in crypto and then switch to like a stable coin. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. That was literally it. I'm curious about how these types of technologies kind of should be liberating and kind of be kind of like essentially life changing to people that don't have another option fundamentally.
Yeah, I think coming from the United States where I live, and even here in Europe where people are banking on stable currencies like the euro or the US dollar, maybe in the UK where they don't really have to worry about those sorts of things. It might not be so clear the value proposition of some of this stuff, and they also might not be aware of stable coins that are pegged to stable currencies like the US dollar or the British pound or the euro. So, with that being said, though, I've been doing a bit of travel myself. I've been in Brazil, Nigeria lately. Also have family ties back to the Middle East, and around the time that I joined the Web3 space, actually, really the few weeks when I was exploring it, I was also having discussions with someone who was essentially, a family friend that you could almost categorize as an economic refugee from Lebanon. And this was a year ago, and obviously the situation hasn't gotten a lot better down there, where they've basically had 1,000% inflation over the course of a 12-month period. They've also had a situation where the bank has been required by the government to not allow any not deposits, but any withdrawals, right? Past like $100 or a few $100s or something per month. So if you had $1 million or even 100,000, or if you're running a business, a lot of situations where you actually had money in the bank, it's all kind of disintegrated and it's caused chaos. And there's also a lot of political instability there. So I think that what you're seeing in some of the discussions I had just recently in Nigeria with some of the people that are in tech there is that they are using crypto as a way to kind of, I guess you could say, have some type of economic stability where they don't have to invest all of their money. And instead, if they want to kind of be able to just have money in the bank and not worry about it going down in value rapidly, stable coins are really, really powerful because you can bank on currencies like the US dollar and be able to not worry about your money just like going away completely. Also, speaking of the Lebanese situation where the banks are being cut off by the government, you can't really do that with cryptocurrencies. If you're using a self-custodial wallet where you have full control over your assets, then no one can intervene. So no one can kind of take that away from you. That's very powerful. But most importantly out of all this, just the ability to be able to open your web browser, download a wallet, and send and receive payments within a few minutes is revolutionary. Because if you've ever tried to send payments from two people at two different parts of the world, and you start thinking about all of the complexities that are built into that system, how brittle they are and how gatekeeping they are for most people, you start realizing that the average person literally is either unable to do something as basic as sending money between two parties, or the amount of work required to kind of get there is very excruciating.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, being able to just, as a developer, write a single line of code to transfer value, and as a participant in this system, able to receive and send that is revolutionary. I think the biggest problem right now is bridging the gap between people that are earning money and how they can start receiving money in these stable currencies and then be able to actually spend that money to buy groceries, because what good is it if you have this money available if you can't actually use it and have utility in the real world? So I think that's a lot of the innovation you're seeing now in the payments areas of Web3 and crypto is point of sale systems that allow people to just take their phone, download an app, and put it in their coffee shop and start receiving receiving payments in some of these networks that allow you to kind of send money. So.
Yeah, wow, but 1,000% inflation, like that's 1,000% inflation in Lebanon. So you mentioned
So it'd be like $1,000 would be worth like $100. Yeah.
You mentioned that stat earlier, and I was like,
I think Argentina was. I think Venezuela was like 30,000% inflation in 1 year. Yeah, I think it was something like that, or 29,000. Yeah. So yeah, some of the things that you see around the world are just like absolutely wild compared to us. In the United States, we see like 7 or 8 inflation percent. We're just like, wow,
Everyone's
that's too
losing
high.
their mind.
And
Yeah.
it is high, obviously, but compared to some other situations, it's not nearly as wild.
Yeah, yeah. That's remarkable. Wow. Okay. Like these are the things I like. Essentially, we don't hear about enough, and so like I'm just thrilled to hear about it now from Nader. And I think the thing that again just makes me so happy is like things like Developer DAO, things like helping educate and transfer knowledge about this to more and more people. I feel like more people should be hearing about things like this, and more people should be enabled by solutions like this, because at the end of the day, we're all here to help elevate ourselves together, and the better that we can do for each other, the better we will all be at the end of the day. So anyway, thanks so much, Nader. It's a pleasure talking.
Thank you for the time today.
Pleasure, and I guess I'll see you again in Miami in a couple of weeks. So
Yes,
yeah, looking forward to that.
Excited about that, yeah. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, I think that Michelle and the organizers of this conference have gotten together and they've hyped up me and a lot of other people, because like Miami is a great city, the location looks awesome, and being down there in the nice warm sun is just going to be like so much fun. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, hopefully I can get that DevDAO membership before that, so we'll figure it out. Anyway, we'll see you there, guys. Bye.